It's just a welcome.
Okay, we are live on YouTube. All right, awesome. We're unmuted.
We ready, Jeff?
Where this is, be good. You're live.
Oh,
Turn your mic on.
Mic's on. Good evening, everyone. I want to welcome you to our town hall meeting for our strategic planning for 2021. If you take a moment with me and stand for a moment of silence and a prayer and a pledge of allegiance. And as we take this moment of silence, let us reflect on those that we have lost over the past year and are continuing. Keep your hearts open and your caring, giving. Our gracious Father, God, creator of heaven and earth, we thank you for this day. We are doubly blessed today to receive the moisture that so many have been praying for in the need of this community and all the mountain region of getting the moisture we receive this day. We thank you and ask you for your wisdom and guidance and understanding. And we also are encouraging our citizens to participate and thank them for all that they do and have been doing for our community to be safe. I thank you for each member on this council, all the staff, and just bless them, protect them, and guide them. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico, the Zia symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Mayor, I would recommend that we acknowledge that we do have a quorum and we did.
I will. Are you done there, sir?
I'm done.
All right, we'll call this meeting to order.
Put your microphone just a little closer.
Okay, as usual, we're still working through all of this, and we appreciate everyone that is attending from Zoom, YouTube, listening to us on the radio station. This is a public meeting, and we did put out a notice that there might be a quorum, and there is. And so we just wanted to acknowledge that it was made public. Today we're going to be going over the state of the village. And again, I thank everyone for giving up an hour or so of your evening to learn more about your village. And I think that you're going to be impressed. It has been an unusual year this year, to say the least. And I hope after this meeting that you understand just what the village has been up to all of this time and a lot of the things that have been done. You don't see every day. So we're going to point a lot of these things out, but rest assured the village is in a strong position. So we'll start off with today's presentation. The State of the Village will be covering the pandemic response from the village's perspective, current financial position, department accomplishments, priority recommendations for 2021, legislative priorities, public safety, and then we have a question and answer where we had a survey, and I don't know if y'all are paying attention, but we're big about surveys. So we've got a lot of questions that we were able to group into similarities that we will answer as best we can and as fast we can. So first on the pandemic response, as we said, it was a rough year transitioning into all the other things, and we took a page from the military. We adapt and we're working to overcome. And so you need to be proud of your village employees because we have them doing other duties as assigned, and we have not had any complaints. But we've started an active emergency response that was started March in 2020, right off the bat, we recognized early on that something was amiss, and so we started talking to our partners at the hospital, medical professionals. That's when we learned a lot more about Dr. Scrace. We then moved into special meetings with the Internal Finance Committee, which is made up of village staff and individuals from the community, where we looked at our budget. We realized that things weren't going to be like what we had been projecting, because 2019 was a banner year for Ruidoso. The start of 2020 in January and February, we had started off at about a 17% increase in GRT over the year before. So it was recommended by the IFC, and then we went to the council, and we had drastic budget cuts. We cut the budget by around 40%. Anything that hadn't been encumbered, we stopped production on. We froze hiring except for emergency personnel, police, fire department, things like that. We started procedure modifications with our village staff. That's where we reassigned staff, where we assigned them other duties. We did not close anything at Village Hall. A lot of communities closed down, laid off. We didn't do any of that. You were still able to get into the village if you needed to get your water bill paid or turned on, or if you had plans that you need to get into planning and zoning, we had appointments that you were able to do it. If you needed to see myself or the village manager, we made accommodations for that. And so we feel pretty good about those things, that we were able to maintain our level of services. And in fact, we had to change some of those things and increase level of services. We relaxed ordinances to assist businesses right off the bat. We went in and changed I put out I think there was 12 executive orders. One of them had to do with signage. You know, we relaxed sign ordinances where you could have signs, banners, things like that to advertise your business. The village also relaxed standards where we were able to help restaurants have outdoor seating. And that was awesome in May, June, July, and August. It's not worth a flip today, even though we do really enjoy the snow that we're getting right now. The village also provided these restaurants, any one of them that wanted it, free of charge. Parks and Rec was happy to install them for them, the tents. So the majority of the tents that you see around town are owned by the village of Ruidoso. We started the Ruidoso Safe campaign, which I'm pretty proud of. We started tracking expenses immediately. And this is something that we've learned from our emergency plans that we've started preparing, that we learned a big lesson back with Hurricane Dolly in 2008, I believe it was. And so we were prepared, not exactly for the pandemic because we'd never been here before, but we saw similarities. So we started the Ruidoso Safe campaign where we worked with businesses in the community. We tried to break out every sector of the economy, talk to the business owners on what it would take for them to be able to open safely under some of the guidelines that were just now coming out at that time from the state. And so we put that together in a pretty comprehensive plan, along with what the village would do. We started on a volunteer basis, I might add. Village employees worked on the weekends, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday in Midtown, handing out PPE, masks, hand sanitizer, and things like that with an information packet on what it was expected from our visitors. That we wanted them to wear the mask. We wanted them to go in our businesses, but that they needed to maintain social distancing and use the sanitizer as frequently as possible. And I mentioned that we started tracking expenses during this period, and the CARES Act funding came out from the federal government. It was entrusted with the state. So we worked with the state, our senior staff, our village manager, Tim Dodge, and our deputy manager, Ron Sena, worked tirelessly with other staff, well over 250 man hours in just processing paperwork on what we needed to qualify, talking to our businesses. We went door to door. We sent out emails. We sent out old snail mail just to let everybody know that could possibly benefit that this was available. And we were very successful, especially when we compare ourselves to other people in the state. We had a countywide effort with local governments where we were looking at testing, being prepared if they were unable to get PPE. And if you remember in the beginning, it was very difficult to get masks. It was very difficult to get sanitizer. And thank goodness for Will and Rebecca Ponder down at our local distillery. We purchased gallons and gallons of hand sanitizer that we through the Ruidoso Safe campaign, we were able to put in the sanitization stations that you saw all through Midtown, where anybody could go up and get a squirt for their hands. So we appreciate our local merchants for that. As I said before, I put out 12 executive orders that were seen at the time that we were responding to businesses in the community on what they needed. If we could do it, we did it. Others were limiting access from folks outside of the community to Grindstone, so that at least our local folks would have a chance to get outdoors and try to have some respite from being locked up all the time. We worked and coordinated with the Department of Health on our COVID response, where we're actually in the process right now of facilitating testing centers, and we're hoping that somehow we'll transition into vaccination centers if that's what people want to do. We instituted a COVID hotline response because shortly after this, we found out that we were lacking. The state was lacking on information on how people could get tested, how people could get a vaccination. And what we did find out, there's still a lot of folks out there that don't have access to the internet or a smartphone. And so we put in a regular old phone line and had it manned. And one of the individuals is here tonight. She would work with the individuals on getting them registered for testing or getting them registered for a vaccine. So we've tried to be very adaptive during this period, just like one of our other local merchants. And I want to really give a clap and a shout out to Dr. Rath and Fusion Medical Center over there, that they were contacted immediately when the vaccines were available and asked how fast could they start getting the vaccine out. Without question, Fusion Medical Spa and their staff went into action at no cost. Started through the process of giving vaccinations, and we do appreciate that. And through that, you're going to find a story called Two Doctors and a Book Club, how they helped roll out vaccinations in rural New Mexico. Someone had written that article, and it was picked up by the Washington Post. So we're very proud of the responses, because this community has probably the best volunteer mechanism of people with big hearts that I've ever seen. So we'll move on to the next slide, which is financial stability. 2020 marked the first time in 25 years that the Village of Ruidoso had received a director's award for budgeting practices. And we had an excellent budget again and an excellent audit. I can't really speak to the results yet until they're made official, but it was good. But Donnie Quintana is the director of the DFA, and he recognized the excellence that our finance department, which is led by Judy Starkovich and her wonderful staff, on how we maintain our records and our finances. And so we were recognized for that. On June 30th, 2020, which is the end of our fiscal year, the Village of Ruidoso's governmental funds reported combined fund balances of $23,406,321, and that was an increase of $6,833,086 in comparison with the prior fiscal year. Now, this is going to start confusing some people that we actually had more revenue than we did the previous year. And so as we go through the paperwork and the facts and figures, you'll see just how some segments of our community are doing outstanding, and unfortunately, we have folks in the community, businesses that are not. And those are the people that we're really working hard to be able to get some relief for them. They need to get open. So the next slide is financial stability. It's comparison from 2019 to 2020. If you can look at the graph, the blue and the green, the gross receipts tax distribution from 2019 and 2020, they're pretty close. And 2019, as I said earlier, was a great year. Revenues were up, percentages were up. So the fiscal year of the village, FYI 2020, we started with a cash balance of $67 million and projected revenues of $70,165,000 and change, for a budget total of $137,512,435, and that was in cash and encumbered funds. And we got to remember, we'll cover this in a minute, but we have a lot of projects, well over 30, that we've started, from the sewer line project to Grindstone to you name it. Budget expenditures were reduced in anticipation of the COVID-19 projected revenues. were anticipated to be $114,881,306. And so in the beginning, we understood that things weren't going to be what we expected, so we backed off, we cut our budgets. We knew that we were going to have some revenue downturn, and so we were prepared for it when it happened. And in fact, we weathered the storm better than what I had expected. Still on financial stability, the next slide here says taxable gross receipts. This is just a comparison. And if you can just follow with me, and I know you guys can read, but in October 2020, we were up $1,885,000, or 6.95% from the previous year. Now in September 2020, it was shown that we were down 2.2% from the previous year. Now the year-to-date GRT revenue is down 3% from December, for the December report that we got, but the year-to-date retail sales, and I know this gets complicated, and we will have this online. I'll be available, our staff will be available this week to work out some of the details, but the year-to-date retail sales figures are up 2.05%, or $1,244,758. But this month's retail is down 3.77. What this is telling us is that it is moving up and down, but that we're holding our own with what we have in the past, in spite of everything. The big hit is in the construction sector, is down over $5.8 million compared to October 2019. That's a decrease of 25%. Gasoline tax, we're always looking at these things. It tells about how many people are coming in, how much gas is being purchased, and people coming in and out of the community. We had a loss of $5,775. Lodgers tax collected in November 2020 was down a year-to-date 1.79%, or $19,920. So you can see we're doing pretty good. Our GRT rate breakdown, and this is for your edification, so you understand when we're charging our patrons on every dollar service or good that we're selling, every hamburger or everything that we're doing, we're charging 8.4375%, 8.4%. Out of that, the state takes 5.2, the city, here we get 3.06, the county gets 0.25. So that's just so that you understand the breakdown of that percentage that we get on our GRT, which is a tax on goods and services. Excuse me. Next slide, please. Lodgers Tax Fund. If you look at the graph, the blue is 2019, the red is 2020. As you can see, it's pretty stable, but you look at May when we had the big shutdown, April, May, June, how everything dipped, July, August, September, we started coming back up. That just shows you the resiliency of the merchants that we have here in the village of Ruidoso, how people were willing to adapt, change their businesses. Our staff at the Village Hall worked with these businesses on how can we help, what can we do to help facilitate you through this change. And so the unending spirit that some of these business people, the ingenuity that they and their employees have should be commended. One of the things that helped us on the lodgers tax was that we instituted internet scrubbing software for the short-term rentals. As everyone knows, the hotels took it the worst. But we have a lot of short-term rentals, and we had a lot that weren't registered, that weren't collecting lodgers tax and GRT. So with this internet scrubbing software, we now have close to 1,000 short-term rentals registered that are now collecting GRT and lodgers tax. So that has been a big boon. It is an industry into itself here in Ruidoso. With it comes its own positives and negatives, and we'll cover those shortly. Next slide, please. I'm going to check my notes and make sure I covered everything. I believe we have. So we'll move into public infrastructure. This is something that we have been working on a long time. The spending on these projects are scheduled improvements for the community infrastructure, and they're also going to be a big impact economically to the community. And if anybody has seen all the trucks around town, SAK, they are in the process of working on the FEMA sewer project, which is going to be a $30 million plus project that we've been working on since the flood of 2008, when Hurricane Dolly came through. And so we've doggedly worked through this process with FEMA, Army Corps of Engineers. Well, there's a whole host of government agencies that we've stayed after. And we finally have come to some ground where we can make some progress and actually do some work. So SAK is in the field as we speak. You see their trucks. They're renting, hotel rooms, buying meals, spending the money here in town. Also, if you'll see Windstream trucks or Kinetic, GTS, there's a lot of internet companies that are laying fiber. The village has finally entered into an agreement where we are actually getting the backbone for the community for fiber. All of the village properties are actually being hooked up as we speak. And so this has been a goal for a long time for the village of Ruidoso. And I have to say for the folks at the Chamber of Commerce, they've been working on that. This has been one of our big infrastructure capital outlay dreams for a long time, and we've put the plan together, and we're finally actually seeing some things that are happening. We have a wonderful little pie chart down here that you can look at. It pretty much speaks for itself, and I know some of the people that don't speak governmentese, which I was one of them at one time. It gets a little confusing, but I implore you, if there's some of these numbers that you want to see detail, again, this will be on our website, but will be available for any kind of discussion that you need afterwards. The VOR, Village of Ruidoso, we spent a little over $6.1 million in projects in 2020. And we have a lot more scheduled for 2021. It's a little over $21 million. But just a few of the projects that we're doing, and I mentioned before the FEMA sewer line. We have the Country Club water tank that you probably won't see, but that's where we store a lot of water. That was an expensive item, but we have that done. It's finished, inspected, and it's full. Close Road Bridge, which is the bridge that gives you the direction to Gavilan Canyon, the cutoff over by the subway behind McDonald's over there. That bridge was damaged in the flood of '08. We were able to put it in. Initially, the estimates were that this bridge would be about $250,000 to $500,000, and I believe we spent a little over $2 million on it, and that was through grant funds, FEMA funds, and so it's completed at this point. We do have some gabion basket work to complete. We have completed a lot of rehabs, reworks on a lot of our water wells in Eagle Creek. For example, rehab of the Alto 2 well. The water wells that are up there, they all have these incredible names that it took a long time somebody to think up, like Green Well and Brown Well and stuff like that. But we've worked all of those over. This is a lot of stuff that you don't see, which secures the most important resource that we have here besides our families, water. And so that's why you see that the lakes are full except for Grindstone. We'll touch on that here in a minute. Your water tanks are secure with water. We've also gone to great lengths, and Randy Kane is one of our directors that has spent a lot of time and is an expert and one of the wonderful hires that this village has made in the past years that is paying off in spades now with upgrading all of our water plants. Plant 3 is the Alto plant. We've gone in and put new controls, and we're also doing some of the same things over at the Grindstone. We have sewer line extensions that we're in the process of doing, lift stations that will be in the Upper Canyon that will be started in 2021. We're doing a slight remodel to Village Hall. We had a lot of issues there with plumbing over the years with the foundation settling. So we're taking this opportunity to make sure that that happens. And it's already started. If you drive by, you'll see the work that's going on there right now. Lake Grindstone, in the questions that we received, as I said before, we asked and you delivered on a lot of different questions. A lot of the questions were geared to Grindstone and the work that we're doing out there. And so we'll cover that shortly, but that's another one of the projects. Other kinds of improvements all over town, replacing water lines with the GO bill, the GO bonds that you so graciously passed. The purchase of the Wingfield property, which some of you might not know where that's at, but the Wingfields are one of our founding families for the village of Ruidoso. That's the house that's next to Ace Hardware. That was one of the homesteads and kind of a central meeting place for people that were in the community. And so there's a lot of history there, and we have a lot of things working with that, and I'll talk about that later, but it's going to be a real plus to the community and a big historical value. In the garage that's there, we will be placing KRUI 1490, the Mountain Radio Station, which is now in the possession and control of the Village of Ruidoso. It was a gift given from the Hubbard organization, and we appreciate that, that we were able to take the equipment, the antenna, the licensing, and so it is now officially in our name that we have several shows about during the week that we would appreciate you tuning into, and we'll discuss that shortly. Okay, if we'll move on to the next slide you have is community development. The American Planning Association awarded the Village, here's another award that we received this year. Village first place in excellent in public engagement. And I know some of you might not think that's a big deal, but we go to great lengths to communicate with the people of the village. We do it social media wise. We have people in our tourism department, our public information officer, that we use virtually every platform that social media has to offer to let people know what we're doing, when we're doing it, and how to get involved. We send out direct mailers. We talk about it on the different radio stations constantly about getting people engaged. I know that Samantha is Samantha Sanchez Mendez is the department director there, and that she is and her staff, they're remarkable. But they've gone door to door to talk to businesses. They've gone to great lengths to communicate with the public to get you involved. And some of the examples that I have of that is, I know the big thing was about the Links Golf Course. You know, what's going to happen to the Links Golf Course? Because we had heard from many families, young families, that were looking for more green space for their children to play soccer, flag football, things like that. And as everyone knows, flat land in Ruidoso is at a premium. And so here we have this big, beautiful golf course. So, you know, some said, let's just get rid of the golf course. So what do? We ask you, the Village of Ruidoso, what did you want done with that? We put out a survey monkeys. I don't think just one, two. How many do we do, Tim? Three? We sent them out and we listened to you. And then we had public meetings. But a lot of this comes back to the comprehensive plan that I probably skipped over more than I should. But what we heard from you is that we did not want to lose the golf course. And so this is an example of the community outreach that we've done. Another one is the Links Walking Trail Extension. Another is coming up that we've already had 2 meetings on is the Metropolitan Redevelopment Act, which has a ton of benefits potentially for businesses in the corridor, which will be from the Y all the way down Suttereth to the Circle in Upper Canyon. And so we're looking forward to getting the business owners, property owners involved into that. Next slide, please. Our 2021 priority is economic vitality, as you can well imagine. It's the key to a healthy community. So goals are to help the businesses remain viable and profitable, the ones that aren't, to get them there. We need to ensure that the workforce remains energized and sustainable. Now, how in the hell are we going to do that? I mean, we can't even get workforce housing, which we'll talk about that in a minute. Well, we've purchased some mobile analytic software that gives us all kinds of data that's raised off of cell phones. Everybody's got one. There's no secret on what you're doing. I'll just let you know that right now, from your credit cards and other information. So we're taking that information and being able to give that to our businesses on what they should do to develop their businesses, looking for retail leakage. That's businesses leaving the community. What can we do? How can we energize our businesses here to maybe make a change? And we have an economic revitalization committee, which is made up of our Parks and Rec team tourism, and our community developers. So there's a lot of things that are in the works that we'll be talking to you in the future about. And all of it comes to the fact that we have worked so hard with let's just go back to the implementation of the comprehensive plan. That was something that we've worked on for years here. But we went at all efforts to get that thing completed. You, the public, showed up. I think we had over 400 people show up. We broke it up into different divisions on different things of the economy, the village, what you want to see, how you would like to see it. We were able to put that together. We hired professionals to put that together and combine it to us. So we learned a tremendous amount of information, but that comprehensive plan is not just something that we've put on the shelf. And that's usually what a lot of people do. And that's the reason that we were recognized for the implementation of the the comprehensive plan, is because we're actually using it. The comprehensive plan is the master plan that we have for the village of Ruidoso. What do we want to be? Where are we going? It's our roadmap to success. And within that, we'll have strategic plans. We'll have master plans like we have for Wingfield Park, like we'll have for Grindstone. All of these that we're working on, and that all comes from public input. Just to go back to the metropolitan redevelopment area, I can't stress how important I think this is going to be. This is something that we've worked on, and it was made possible by a $50,000 grant that we were able to get from the New Mexico Finance Authority. We were able to hire a company called Site Southwest, which is a planning company. And so they've come in and they've started the dialogue with you, the community, Zoom meetings. I know some of you, I see your names there. You have been on those meetings, so you know what I'm talking about. Those of you that don't, please start watching. Open your emails, really. If you're a registered business, you get an email from us. Open those up, it gives you access. Tune into our Facebook page, check our website periodically, but we have these meetings pretty regular. But this is going to cover things like blighted properties. And I know that we've had some success in the Midtown area of being able to get businesses to start cleaning up, and getting the buildings more presentable, get the aesthetics up. And so through this Metropolitan Redevelopment Act, it gives the ability of you, private business, private property owners, to actually do business with the village of Ruidoso. That it gives you access to the ability to get grants, low interest loans, things of that nature. And so we want you to be a part of that. And again, it's going to go all the way from the Y, all the way to down to all the way up to Upper Canyon to the circle. And it will cover some areas that'll be just off of Suttereth too. Let me see. I think there's so many different things that we're looking at in the community development area. Another one is the Chapter 54. Land use is just a mess. It's been adopted from years past because most cities are set out with, everything square or rectangular, a 50-foot front, 50-foot back, or 120-foot setback. But in the village of Ruidoso, most of you know, if you pay attention, that there's not too many square lots. And so we have a lot of things that have been added to, adapted over the years, which some of them don't make sense anymore. So we're going through that chapter, and we've tried. I've been on this council a long time. Some of you have too. We've made several good stabs at it and attempts with past directors, and we just haven't got that very, very far. So we're really going to get it done this year. We've hired a company, or we're in the process of that, to help us work on that so that it dovetails with the comprehensive plan, so that when we're working with developers, because we're going to be talking about workforce housing here in a little bit, long-term rentals, things of that nature. Well, there's not availability. If anybody's looked at our inventory for rentals in this community, they're pretty much nil. And a lot of that is due to our short-term rentals. But let's let the free market reign on that. That's my opinion. Okay, we'll move into the next slide, please, which has to do with tourism. We have one of the most acclaimed tourism departments with Team Tourism and our tourism director in the state. In fact, if anybody watches the snappy commercials called New Mexico True, those were adapted after our program that has been going on here for some time. We've been very successful, as most business people know. Years ago, when my wife Tracy and I moved here, our shoulder seasons were pretty weak. If you didn't make all your money by Labor Day, you were pretty much in the wind, and you might have a bump at Thanksgiving and Christmas. But we've expanded those to where it's not such a cyclical nature like it used to be, where people can run a business. And again, you business people, you're the best I've ever been around. But Team Tourism, with the tourism board, they sit down, and it's not the tourism board, it's the lodgers tax board, but again, it's made up of volunteers, business people from different segments of the community. Went in and did a presentation, and the tourism cut their budget by 50%. Went from a call to action, come to Ruidoso to go hiking, biking, fishing, all those things, come to the cool pines, sit on the deck, have a glass of wine. they stopped all that. And the only advertising that we did do was a brand awareness. And the only time that we did those was something that we had been contracted to, that we had, that we have encumbered funds for, that we had to spend. So we changed the message to discover Ruidoso later. And just to keep that brand awareness out there, that top of mind awareness. And so they were very adaptive at changing the message. We went to COVID safety, letting the people in Texas and Oklahoma and Arizona and even some of the California folks that are coming in know what's expected of them when they come to town. Governor's telling them, shut the town up, shut the state up, or whatever. We weren't advertising for people to come in, but anybody that was here this summer saw what happened, and you understand that it was very successful for some businesses and that we are blessed more than most of the other communities that are in the state of New Mexico. But our team tourism is in weekly contact with the state tourism officials. So we have a feel of what's going on, and hopefully we're going to be able to unleash the beast, as it were, and start messaging again. But again, they saved their money, but they were prepared. They cut their budget by 50%. Now then, one of the things that Team Tourism has done is that they're very analytical. They get a lot of data off of social media. Some of the other things that I talked about previously, they'll use information there to leverage all this data and be able to, market to certain segments of the community. They have certain of aspects of tourism that we will be going after, and we'll be working with local businesses to make sure that they're the ones that benefit from that. One of the things that they're going to be working on, just like this beautiful building we're setting in right now, the convention center, we've had no action in here. I mean, we shut down, and everybody knows that usually this place is having some sort of an event every weekend, which turns into lodger's tax money, turns into gross receipts tax and profitability for many businesses and families in this community. We haven't been able to have any of that. But Team Tourism is poised to react as soon as we're able to do that. We already have calls. We already have event organizers. We already have people that are ready to come back, and we just need to figure out how we get them in here. Let me see. Let's move on to outdoor tourism. That's a new goal that we have, that we started last year. In fact, it was so important to the state tourism board and the governor that she hired a young lady to run just that department, that actual endeavor. Her name is Lexi Nava. And so one of the goals of outdoor tourism that we are a leader of in this state is, we've been developing bicycle trails, hiking trails over the last few years. So we have over 40 miles of bicycle trails, and we're looking at equestrian trails and things like that. But some of the targeted areas that they're shooting for 2021 is OHV recreation. That's your side-by-side off-road vehicles that we went through and the village council passed. We've been working with the state, and we're continually working with the county on being able to open up more roads. And I got some great information right before the meeting. There's a small group of folks that are working with the state on the OHV recreation area over at Hell Lake, and they got confirmation that they'll be able to start the first 5 trails there, and that eventually they expect Hell Canyon Loop to be open. And then there's a few issues that they'll be working at during hunting season. But that's a big plus. That gives, whether you want the side-by-sides here or not, they're coming. It's a new fad, and it brings a lot of money to the community. It's hard to drive around in a $25,000 to $30,000 Can-Am or a Polaris with your family, and that's what we're seeing. It brings families. Disc golf is another one. It's one labeled as the fastest growing sport in America. And some of our very own, I won't go through and name every name of people that have worked for the last 15 to 20 years on building our disc golf courses around the village. But we have some of the best, they're world class. And the new one was constructed on Moon Mountain property, which we're in charge of. And so if you haven't been over there, you need to walk it. You need to try to play it. They've got several holes you can throw your arm out twice on. I mean, it's very difficult. And so we're looking forward to some of those guys that are putting in their own time, their own money to help us get this thing done. And again, that's another perfect example of volunteerism from this community. But camping and RV is a big thing here. A lot of RVs came to town. A lot of them are still here. They ended up getting out of the big cities during this COVID, and they have been staying here the whole time. So we need to really work. We're working with the Forestry Service. I know they're taking over some of the campgrounds that are up around Lake Bonita. But this isn't just for Ruidoso. This is for the whole region. And we do all these things because we're competing with Red River, other regions, places in Texas and Arizona. And so we need to be able to offer more amenities, more things to do when you get here and spread people out. Hunting, hiking, and wildlife. Everybody sees the wildlife that we have here in town. Well, guess what? We have it where it's not in town. Hiking is getting better all the time. And there's nothing better than going out hiking with your friends, your loved ones, and your puppy dogs and seeing the wildlife that's out there. Winter sports, while, we're at the mercy, and thank the Lord for the snow today. We don't know how much snow we're getting, but we've entered into a public-private partnership before with Winter Park, Snow Play, and for an expansion over there that we will be expanding that with, I should say it's our property. We're doing some thinning over there, but Mr. Dorgan is expanding that over there with some snowboard activity, some beginning skiing, and then we'll have that stretch into summer. We'll have summer tubing. And so that's something that we're looking forward to, but that will still work in conjunction with the baseball and softball tournaments. Isn't that right, Rodney?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Rodney's already all over that, and if y'all don't know Rodney, he's our Parks and Rec director and a very good one at that. Water sports and fishing. I don't know if y'all know it, but we've been listed as world-class fishing. At one time, we were number one in the state from the fish in Grindstone and Alto, and that didn't happen by accident. We had a lot of planning going in, working with the fisheries. We purchased, it was built into the budget. The state does provide some good fish, and we've had some awesome trout that have been caught out of there, and I know that we've stocked several others out there, and it's a great place to go. We've had the introduction of the boat ramps. Non-motorized boats can get out there. And it's just an excellent thing. I have even seen some of those, what they call them, windsurfing, or where you stand up on the surfboard and paddle around out there. And of course, we don't want to forget the Whibbit. Like it or not, the Whibbit was a big popularity boon. It gave a lot of the kids something else to do, that they were able to get a pass when the swimming pool was open, and they could go to the swimming pool or they could go to the Whibbit. And of course, we've worked in local deals so that the locals and the grandkids of the locals can take advantage of that stuff. Some of the other things that are new that they're looking at is focusing on aerial sports. We have a wonderful, wonderful airport that if you haven't been out there, you need to see it. We'll be talking about it shortly. Skydiving, airplanes, hang gliding, fly in and drive off. Where, you get these group of airplanes that fly in, they rent a car, and then they drive into the community, or we can pick them up in a bus and they can come down and have a day of it, shopping and eating, and then fly out. Some even spend the night in tents out there on the property. Golf, we all know how golf is. We spoke before about the links is going to stay. It's a beautiful area with all the golf courses that we have. It's a big draw from a lot of the local colleges. And I say local, from West Texas and the rest of New Mexico come in. Something new they're talking about doing is rock climbing. I don't know if people know it, but the military's been bringing people up here for years for high altitude training, rock climbing, and staying in the cold, as it were. But it's not going to be all just on Sierra Blanca. I mean, we have Cloudcroft nearby, and of course the Capitan Mountains. Next, we'll go into our favorite thing, which is basically what keeps us all here and keeps us concerned. And it wasn't that many years ago that we were worried. We were running out of water. We didn't know what we were going to do. We were trying to buy water rights right and left. And if we didn't have water, your property, your business is not going to have much success or be worth a whole lot. So we've worked on distribution. We had what Tim calls a cocktail of funding from leveraging GO bonds with the community development block grant monies. Now, I haven't really talked a whole lot about the community development block grant monies, the CDBG. We actually received a $750,000 grant, first one we received since the 80s. So that tells you again, you've got some snappy people working at Village Hall that are working hard to get that. And it came back, I believe, as the number one grant application that came in, and that's why it was funded. So we were able to leverage that with the GO bond money. And so we ended up with, instead of $1.5 million and then 750, we ended up with $2.25 million. And we're going to put that into an area called Town and Country that its time is way overdue. Where we can put in roads, sewer lines, fire hydrants for fire suppression, fire protection, and water lines and water distribution. And what happened when it was announced that we received that block grant and we were getting ready to start this project, which will be starting in the spring of 2021, a private developer was pretty astute and went up there and bought 30 acres. And his plan has been turned into planning and zoning for the building of 60 new single-family homes. So this gives us an opportunity. He's bringing in, not only using the builders we have here, but bringing in outside builders, because if you know a builder, you know they're busy. But to get those built so that they can get bought, and hopefully people in our community can move up into that house, and then other people will be able to move into their homes. And maybe some of them will become long-term rentals. That's just one stab that we've taken, and finally we're having a little success in that. Water distribution, one of the big things is going to be our asset management, and people wonder, what do you mean asset management? Well, that's on, as I spoke before, about our well rehabs, GO bonds, and the Watershed program, and I'll talk about that shortly, but we'll go on to the next one for this right now, because asset management is a very important tool. Streets. I don't know if anybody's familiar with the MAP program, which MAP stands for Municipal Arterial Grant Program. And what that does is it gets you from state road into the community, and you have to dot your I's and cross your T's to be able to get this. But a perfect example of that is Mescalero Trail. If anybody has driven down that beautiful little stretch, and our next project is Carrizo Canyon. And I know everybody's going, thank the Lord, because that one's needed it for some time. But again, Josh is the manager there, director. He's doing a good job filling potholes. I know he got off to a slow start because we had the bridge tore down and it had to be replaced, and everything had to be diverted. So he had a hard time getting in and out over there to get his equipment. But his guys do a great job, and they're out doing that job right now with snow removal. They did it early this morning. Streets, they were probably the most overlooked department that we had. And through strategic planning that we had last year, we identified the council. It was identified that, through the budget cuts and things that we had in years past when our finances were not so good, that we weren't getting them any new vehicles. And so they had the hand-me-down of the hand-me-downs. And so we were able to get them some new vehicles, some new snow plows, and things like that. So we're excited for Josh and those guys to be able to move into that. But the MAP program, like I said, is an important aspect, and we'll be moving into that Carrizo Canyon area. Next slide, please. Jerry Parsons runs our solid waste department, and he is a good one. And if you could take a look at this graph, initially when COVID came and the shutdowns happened, and miraculously we started having people flocking to the community, and people were at home. Well, there's only so much Netflix and streaming and whatever else that you can do. So people got outside and cleaned their yards up and started getting rid of pine needles and things like that. So if you look at the graph, you're able to tell that we picked up quite a bit. If you can go over to April and see that they picked up about 65,000 tons. And that's just the pine needles, woods, cleaning up yards, people cleaning out their garage. But you can see the kind of level of service that these guys have. So what did we have to do? So they had to increase pickups. The picker trucks that you see that pick up the piles on the side of the road that you are able to just drag down to, in front of your house, and hopefully in an area that's not under a power line, that they pick up and they haul off. That's part of your services that's provided by what you pay in your water bill. That's part of your water bill. Also, with the short-term rentals filling up, we started having dumpsters in certain neighborhoods that were filled up, and so we had to adjust the schedules. So Jerry did a great job of working with his guys in doing that. And mind you, this is during the retraining of COVID, wearing a mask, not showing up to the meetings in the morning like they all do, you know, for camaraderie, to drink coffee and tease the new guy or the old guy or the fat guy. They were having to do things separately. And still, we got a lot of work. And again, this is another department that we're so very proud of. We have the bear mess crew that in the summer, you know, we have people that don't get it all in the trash can and they don't get the lid down. And then we have trash for a block. Well, I don't see anybody picking it up except for the bear mess crew. And those guys are remarkable. They did it through the COVID. You know, we provided PPE to all of those guys, and we just appreciate the hard work that those guys do. So one of the big goals will be continuing that level of service and also replacing dumpsters and trash cans. I mean, and you know, they do a good job about that. And I know we do sometimes get complaints from the new dumpsters because the lids are heavy. They have the bear lock on them. And so, you know, we try to make accommodations where possible. Next slide, please. Water resource. Here we are again talking about water, because that's anybody that's ran for council or mayor for the last 20 years, all they talk about is water. And so we've actually been able to do something about it. I don't go to bed worried about water. I don't worry about it in the summer because we have a gentleman by the name of Eric Boyda that worries about it. And he has trained this council. He's an expert in this field. Again, it comes back to our hires, the people that we've hired. He's working on his asset management program for the village, which we'll be covering in our strategic meetings, which start tomorrow. But it's a strategic business process where we're able to efficiently and effectively use our resources. What is our asset is a well. It can be our storage tanks. It's, you know, the diversion tactics. It's the plants that we do. It's just like anything else. You have to maintain it. And that's the reason that we were in the mess in the first place, is that we didn't have a proper plan on how to replace our water lines. They don't last forever. And so, again, with the support of the citizens, we've been able to pass bonds where we've been able to go in there and replace water lines like on Mockingbird, DePaulo, and other streets that we've done. Well, this asset management plan is to put in there to manage our assets, to look at life expectancies, risk and resiliency. You know, when do we need to start repairing them? When are we not replacing them? But also, and it helps us with our emergency response plan. And that's something that we'll go over later. But if you look at this chart, it's pretty remarkable. You see the dark blue and the light blue. And what that's telling you is that the different wells that we are able to, from the different watersheds. You have the upper Rio Ruidoso, which is the dark, and Eagle Creek. So just to let you know, Eagle Creek is where we've just redone a bunch of the wells. That's what feeds the Alto Water Plant and Alto Lake. That's where 60 to 70% of your water comes from. Okay? Now you look in years past, back to 2012, the dark blue lines are bigger because most of that was coming from the upper Ruidoso. And so we were having trouble with our water inventory, water rights. So, you know, we can only take so much water, the water that we own. And so the management for that was pretty jicky at best because we weren't really doing it correctly. We didn't know that we weren't doing it correctly. And so with the hiring of the right people and training, we've learned how to operate and manage our water uses more effectively. And you can see that we've transferred our uses from the Rio Ruidoso over to Eagle Creek, where we have the majority of our water rights. So we're confident in our water management. We're able to see, but you can see up there in 2013 that we were using approximately 1,600 gallons of water. Now, okay, 1,600 acre feet. Now, let me tell you what a acre foot of water is. That's 326,000 gallons is an acre foot. So in your mind's eye, if you would look at a football field full of water, 1 foot deep, that's 1 acre foot of water. So that's the kind of water that we're producing, but you can see the trends are starting to come down, that we're not using as much water. We're having just as many people, if not more. But this is where we're fixing our water leaks, because we had a study done to find out about our produced water that had been treated at the plants that were put into the water lines. We found out that, 35%'s leaking. Oh no, 50%'s leaking. More than that, 60% of our produced water was leaking back into the mountain. That's not a very effective way. It's not a good manager of your resources. So we've been fixing those things with your help, the public's help, placing the water lines, watching us, trusting us to invest into your water system, which we have done, and that's what I'm trying to prove to you today. But I think this is a slide that you should be very proud of. The people that are making it happen are working for this village. They're very proud of the job, and I'm very proud of the job that they do. Next slide, please. The word I was looking for a while ago was water rights portfolio. So thanks for nothing. You guys are just here for looks, I guess. Okay, we've talked about water production. You know, we've rehabbed 3 Eagle Creek wells, Alto 2 well, Green well, Apple Orchard well, Fault Brown well. I told you they had a lot of really creative names. But one of the things I want to talk about is the watershed. And we have a neat little graph, if you can see it, for those of you that don't understand what the watershed is. But if you think of the mountain, and when it rains, it soaks in, and then it runs down, and then usually you have a creek or a river in the bottom of it. And so that's our watershed, where it's absorbed into the water, into the ground, and then it gets into either a aquifer, or into pockets or whatever, and this is where our water wells are located. But what we're doing to improve water quality, protect our water, is we've purchased 14 acres of land. And that land that we purchased was in the Eagle Creek area, which is up Ski Run Road. So we've purchased a lot of the land on either side so that we can ensure that there's no building out there that might endanger our water supply. We've gone a long way to that. And as I said that before, there's that figure up there, 60 to 70% of your water comes from this Eagle Creek watershed. So that's how important it is to us, and so we recognize that. Unfortunately, after it was pointed out, I mean, they had to show us what it was, but the foresight of the council, and thank goodness that we had the money to do it, and we've done it. Also, we're looking at the Horton complex, stormwater improvements, and that's just so much of the land that was flat around here has been built on. So a lot of that land at one time was marshy. And so, the water doesn't absorb, it has nowhere to go. And so those are some of the things that we're working on in our improvement stages for the village. How do we put in absorption areas where water can actually be absorbed into the ground and it actually back into the water columns or into the aquifer? We've done this, like I said, at the Horton. We're in the process of doing it at the Horton complex, and we have a lot more to do there this coming year. But over at Grindstone Canyon, the wetlands behind the dam, if anybody went down there, we reworked all of that so we have better absorption into that. That was quite an eye-opener to me about how it was done. It was dug out, certain sides of rocks and different layers of rocks were put in here, much like the picture that you have there. We did a fish habitat on Main Road at the new bridge and also over on Robin Road Bridge. So we have a nice little area. If you go into Upper Canyon, that's the new bridge right off to the sides of there. We've worked on a fish habitat. That's exciting, and we want to do a lot more of that stuff. So that, so much of the river is owned by someone that you can't even go fishing anymore without getting in trouble. So the village is working that we can have more access points for the locals to go out there and fish and enjoy the place that they live, because it's not all about work. 2021, over at Wingfield Park, we're looking at drainage improvements, because I don't know if everybody knows, but that's called Ruidoso Springs for a reason over there. That there are springs that are underneath there, and so we just need to improve the drainage so that when we get back to having outdoor activities, the Ruidoso, the wine festivals, the art shows, the concerts, and all the things that we were gearing up to, we want to get back to those as soon as possible, and so we want to get that taken care of. We're looking at all kinds of water quality improvements because, as I said earlier, water is important. The Horton complex is where we're going to be moving a lot of the village, different departments, so we have more of a one-stop shop. That was a building that we acquired in a deal with the school system. We will soon be building a new court system over there, the AOC, but it'll be a magistrate court that the district court judge will be out of Carrizozo. Dan Bryant will be using from time to time. So that will be a new project that will be going in where the tennis courts, if you're familiar with that property, will be built on top of the tennis courts. But we've got a lot of work to do over there, and one of them is the watersheds, the absorption places and things of that nature. But one of the long-term goals that we have is more storage for our water. And I know this is going to sound crazy in science fiction, but we've got people going to space and computers, and we're all meeting by Zoom, but we're talking about underground storage here. So we've got a grant and some plans that we're looking into injection points. We have water engineers looking into that, where we could actually take water, and if I remember correctly, it has to be treated and injected into the formation in the ground for storage, and then at a later date pulled out. And it sounds science fiction, but they're doing it all over the country. That would stop our evaporation, stop contamination, and give us plenty of access to long-term water in the event of a severe drought. So anyway, these are the things that we're thinking outside the box that just a few short years, I don't know, 8 or 9, I don't even remember how long it's been, I've been on this council, that, everything was water, panic water. What can we do now, panic water? We're not doing that anymore. We're looking at the finer things of life that we want to do, like helping our businesses, fixing up the aesthetics of the community so that the locals here will have something that they can do. Because like I said, we all moved up here, we live here for a reason, and we need to enjoy it. Next slide, please. Okay, here's the little golden child of all of these. Everybody loves Parks and Rec. Rodney's group does a wonderful job. They had to really make some changes right off the bat when this started. Because as we said before, the adjustment came, we weren't advertising for people to come, but anybody within 200 miles came. They showed up with their families. A lot of those people were getting the unemployment checks, the $1,000 a week that they hadn't had before. So they were coming up, staying in the short-term rentals, going to the lakes, getting on the lake, fishing, and we got inundated. We weren't prepared for that. We weren't advertising. It's COVID. They're telling everybody nationwide to stay home. And so we weren't quite prepared. But Rodney's staff and other staff at Village Hall adapted amazingly, went to online reservations so that we would only reserve the amount of parking spots that we have so that people would at least be able to enjoy their time there. There's nothing worse than going somewhere and it's so crowded that you can't enjoy yourself. So they transformed into COVID cleaners where they, the bathrooms, different departments around for the village, they went in and cleaned. They helped put in the sanitization stations I talked about earlier in Midtown. That's the little, looks like when you're in the restroom, you pump your hand underneath it. All of those have a sanitizer in them. They put them all the way throughout Midtown on all those wood-covered light poles. But in the very beginning, something that I was real proud of when we were trying to figure out how we were going to try to continue on, or we were going to continue with our business, we talked directly all the time with the hospital. And one of the concerns we had at the hospital was the doctors and nurses, with their kids not going to daycare and not going to school, they weren't going to be able to work. So through volunteers to do the job. Now they got paid to do the job, but volunteering to hang around with a bunch of children isn't at the top of my list unless Tim Coughlin wanted to do it. But we were able to over at Horton Complex, and did we do it anywhere else? Just Horton? Volunteered some of our wonderful, wonderful staff to watch their wonderful, wonderful kids and our own children that needed a place to go because there was no school and there was no daycare. And we were able to do that under the loophole of essential workers, that they had to have daycare. So that was just one thing that Parks and Rec did. Next slide. Parks and Rec, usually puts on, and they did again this year, a big light show for Christmas and Halloween. They had a big spooky place last year that got a lot of reviews, the haunted house and whatnot, and just weren't able to do that this year. So they came up with a lot of COVID safety activities, archery shoots, disc golf tournaments, the Halloween. They put up tents and had a drive-through Halloween, which was successful, that they took online reservations and ran people through. And that was very much appreciated by the public, and Rodney and his staff did a great job for that. Christmas, they had a laser light show that was out there in the area that now the wild horses have claimed. And so they did a laser light show out there for 2 nights, and I think it was well attended. The Trail of Lights at Wingfield, which is always a big show, a lot of compliments from the locals that were there, where you could hear the music as you walked through, and tourists too. I mean, we had a lot of people that said that this was really over the top for such a small community, and they really were congratulatory to us. So congratulatory to us. Yeah, that one didn't come out right. We had a house decoration contest, and how many houses did we have win? 4. Okay, and I'm sorry I don't have your names. I should have. I apologize for that. But one of the things that, next slide, please. Oh, I'm sorry. Go back to the other one. I forgot we had a slight change, but the Parks and Rec is working hand in hand with Winter Park that I talked about earlier in the development of the beginning snow, the summer tubing, and whatnot. So they're working in every aspect of everything that we're doing. And then we'll talk a little bit here about what's going on at Grindstone, but they're the ones that staff it. And in the summer, when the swimming pool's open, they're the ones that also staff the swimming pool. And before long, we've got some other things that we'll be talking about that I get to go sign some papers on Thursday. So it'll be a surprise, more to come, that we'll be able to do some things at Alto Lake that I think the locals are really going to appreciate. Next slide. Okay, we want to move into the village clerk. We had a change in this position. Irma Devine had been with us, the village, for 25 years. So she has retired and moved on. And one thing about her, she must really love John because they're moving to Wisconsin. Are you crazy? I don't know. I mean, I'm just saying, you must have lost your mind, Irma. But anyway, we miss her smiling face, and we've moved on. We've appointed Deputy Manager Ron Santa as the interim clerk, and we're reassessing that position. He always has. We have Bertha De Los Santos in there that takes care of all the meetings, and I mean, they have plenty of meetings, not only our meeting, the council meeting, but we have planning and zoning, we have lodgers tax, we have the joint use board meeting, which is a group that's made up of village counselors and the Ruidoso Downs, and we're in management of the Ruidoso wastewater treatment plant. A lot of things are changing over there. They've had to adapt. They're the ones that take care of public comments to make sure that we get it all in our boxes, and we've tried to go digital as much as possible, even though we got paper all over the place right now. Our storage records on the laserfish or microfish or some kind of fish is in an effort to get away from paper storage, and it's all going to be digital. So anyway, we've got some changes there, and we appreciate Bertha and Ron standing up in that position. Next slide, please. Human Resources, we have a new lady that has moved in there, Cheryl Grt, and she has done an excellent job of transitioning with our employees on how to operate safely. Did I say it right, Girth or Girthy? Girthy. I just always call her Cheryl, but she does a great job over there, and her staff of working with the COVID safety practices when we have to quarantine people. And believe me, we're having to do that a lot. People that have been in close contact with someone that's positive or in positive themselves, on what's entailed, what they've got to do to return to work, getting with the cleaning crews to make sure that those things are cleaned, the areas are cleaned. They also update all the policies, and the paperwork is immense in there. So that's another department that has a lot to do in 2021. And we're looking forward to some new hires that we have in the works. And next slide, please. Grindstone Beach, this comes out, I think, is number 1 in the questions on the survey. What the heck's going on at Grindstone Beach? How can we control it? So if you've looked, and this picture here is where they're developing the beach at Grindstone Lake. And so, there's been a lot of work put in there where we've had aggregate rock put in. Then there's some sand, and then the last 18 inches, I believe, will be a washed sand that will be in there. So it should be a very inviting time for folks to use. And, we want to have locals days out there. We've already got those in the works so that you can take your family out there, do the wading out there. And people, we will have water back in the lake. We had to let the water down to be able to provide this. And so it's just taking a little bit of time. I know the boat docks are dry. I know it's hard to get your boat in the water. I know the fishing docks are not out over the water, but please bear with us. It'll be worth it. I promise you. Next slide. Parks and Rec, again, here, I want you to look at the pictures. I guess they're on your left. That is Grindstone before, and those are pretty good pictures, some of them, on when it did have some water. But, 10 years ago, there wasn't a whole lot down at Grindstone. We had a leaky dam. Y'all all remember that? How that was a hurry up and wait type deal. We had to find out. It cost us a couple of $1 million, how we were actually going to save the dam. And so after it was determined on what type of process it was going to take to stop all the leaking, we entered into an agreement with an Italian company because they were the only ones that made these dam liners. And so there wasn't a whole lot of water in there anyway, but what was in there, they let out a lot of it. And they installed the dam liner to slow down. It still leaks a little bit, nothing like it did before. But the trails, there wasn't really anything around it. You walked at your own risk. It wasn't policed, and by policed, I mean police or people going out there and picking up trash. There was no need to because we weren't doing anything back there. But now then, if you look at the right side, and this is an aerial view, it's a much more, it's just a better picture. You can see some of the things that's been done with the increase in the parking lot, the walking trails, hiking trails, equestrian trails that are built around that actually tie into Forestry Service trails. And we've got other designs on additional things that are over there. We have a little camping facility over there, and I know it gets crowded. So, one of the questions is, and I'll go ahead and speak to it now, is, how are you going to regulate it? Well, we've talked about it earlier. It's a reservation process with the amount of parking spots that we have. And then we have it manned. We have a little turnaround booth that Josh and his streets department went over and cut a turnaround, put a little booth up there, and we have someone manning it on those busy weekends. And they are checked that they have to have a reservation. And for locals, we'll have a local day so that locals can go in there and enjoy it unencumbered. But let's not forget, if it weren't for all those visitors, we wouldn't have the money to do any of this. And so this lake was actually created in 1986. It's not natural, folks. I mean, when the good Lord made Ruidoso, he didn't put that lake in there. There's a watershed, and that lake is filled up with a bypass that takes off water from the Rio Ruidoso. And so we've corrected and fixed that bypass, which was clogged up for a long period of time after the 2008 flood of Dolly, that we had a lot of debris, trash, and wheelbarrow tire, I was told, that was in it, and that was what was keeping it from filling up the lake. So we've fixed that. So that's what it's looking like, and hopefully that we can be patient, but this is going to be a jewel in the diamond in the desert that Ruidoso is, of what can do, what you can have when your friends and family are here, that you can know that they've got a wonderful place that gives kids something else to do, gets them off the computer, out from in front of the TV, and out there to enjoy nature. Next slide, please. KRU The Mountain, I mentioned it earlier. This was given to us, donated by the Hubbard. I don't think it was the foundation. It was just the organization. I don't know if it was all Hub. They had so many different companies, but the radio stations are now out of Lovington, and I think they talk out of Roswell some. So we needed a local radio station. How can we communicate? And this comes back to our redundancy of services in times of emergency. And the radio station is going to be a key component of that, I hope. But we have weekly programming, Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Sometimes it's to 10 p.m. I have Monday with the mayor every Monday morning. And I usually have Tim Dodge and Ron Santa in there, and we have a guest where we come in and we talk about all the different, plans and the jobs that we have in progress. because they are many. There are over 30 of them. And so whenever you have a project that's going on, it gets pretty complicated. And we used to have cost overruns. And one of Councilor Coffin's favorite things is change orders. You know, it's going to cost you more money. So we've gotten a lot better at that in the last 5 years, where we don't have as many change orders. But now then, inside the village of Ruidoso, we've taken employees, repurposed them, trained them, hired a few, where we actually project manage these jobs that are going on. And a big one is the sewer line replacement or repair, rehab. And so that is something that we, I got off on that, so you got to keep me straight. But Mondays with the mayor, we talk about projects like that. So if you're ever wondering what's going on, tune in Monday, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. We have guests on there from time to time. And if you think I'm running an advertisement right now, I am. We want listeners. I want guests. We have a little segment that I'd like to have on there called Mayor for a Minute. Those of you that like to jab me and tell me all the things that I should be doing and all the things I'm doing wrong, I invite you on. And it's not a tit for tat. I'm not arguing with you. I just would like to know what you've thought about, what you would like to see done or how you would have done it different. And it gives us all a perspective because we learn when we listen. Tuesdays, we have Local Legends, which, and all this is pretty much volunteer. We have local people that volunteer their time, and they have a Local Legends show. Wednesday, we have Mountain Air with ENMU. Thursday, we have the Outdoor Hour. Friday, we have the Village Volume. We'll soon be running advertisements, and we'll be in our new building, which will be over at the Wingfield House. It'll have a nice glass cut in the window, so when you drive down Sudworth there across from Slotsky's, you will be able to see us on the air. Next slide, please. Community Center, we've done a lot of repairs over there. Anthony does a great job of running that. He was able to get several different grants, one from our ICIP capital outlay and another one from aging on, what is it, how's it go? Say it louder. Yeah, aging and long-term services. That he was able to put together. So we've got new heating and air conditioning, a new roof, new ceiling tiles in that building, and that was done during this COVID downtime. So we're looking forward to getting that open again so that we can get back to serving meals. But one thing that they did do when the busing station, Zia Trans, was down because of COVID-related issues, which they also they lease the office space in this building from us. They were down. So we had people that couldn't get to the grocery store. They had people that couldn't, get around town to get their medication. So Anthony and his staff with our buses were providing temporary transportation. And that's just another example of how our employees did over and above. And so we appreciate all that they've done. Next slide, please. The convention center, this big, beautiful building's been a ghost town. We had to cancel all the big events. Anything that we had mass gatherings were no-no. But a couple of things that we did do, we were able to use the facilities for food storage, for the food for backpack program, the food bank, and also for the Toys for Tots distribution center. I was proud that we were able to do that. And, with COVID and people not working, there was more demand for food. People needed food. So we would have big trucks come in, park them, back them up to the back of the convention center, and we would actually store the food in here. And so we were able to utilize that, but we look forward to getting back. Like I said, we've already got a lot of phone calls coming in from event organizers, and we will be in the hunt for a new convention center manager. So next slide, please. Library, Diane Staub's done a wonderful job over there with the library. While we weren't accessible fully for people to come in and wander around and set in, we were accessible to call in, and they had curbside service on books. They expanded their services on ebooks to where you could go online and get those things. And also people that didn't have Wi-Fi were able to use the Wi-Fi at the library by pulling up in the parking lot. And there was a nice little setting area outside in the back that many people actually utilized quite a bit. So they did a good job, and we're looking forward to get those guys back to full strength and full staff soon. Next slide, please. The POPO department, the police department has, nationwide, the police department has been dogged. A lot of cries for defunding and changing them up, and that's not happening in Ruidoso, folks. We're proud of our police department. We support our people in blue and brass, and so we want to make sure that we support them. Some of the things that we've worked on is our Consolidated Dispatch, which means that we have consolidated with City of Ruidoso Downs. We are now the PSAP, in which we were before, for this part of the community, which is the Public Safety Program. Well, I forgot it. What's PSAP stand for? Do any of you guys know? Anyway. Yeah, Public Service Answering Point. Thank you. And so we have that there, and you can see from their total call volume for 2020 was 18,496. That included police, fire, and EMS. So one of the things that we've done is we've hired a new position, a deputy chief. We're looking at, getting more involved in the community. We want our police officers to be known so that by the businesses and the people in the community. We've done an okay job. We need to do a better job. So that's one of our goals for 2021 is to get more into the community to introduce our police officers and the things that we should be doing so that when there is a problem that, the people understand that they know this police officer. Another thing is with the lapel cameras. We've had those for some years now, so that's nothing new. Our police department has had that. So we're always working on, upgrading our police officers' equipment, police cars, the uniforms, they always look good. We do have a thing, it was earlier in the year, when we were having all the threats at the schools for shootings. That was a big concern. We had several of those. And so we got together with Chief Hooker, and he took over working on an organization that was a regional approach, countywide, I should say, with all the school systems and all the different jurisdictional, from the BIA, from all the state police to sheriff's department. They used to hold meetings in here talking about a plan of action if there was an action shooter at a certain school. Who has the keys, what's the combination, who's going to be in control, how are we going to handle those things? And so that was something that I don't really know the public knew that much about, but that they did do. The police department also this last year went from business to business talking about active shooter and how you could protect your people and how you could protect yourself. So we're looking forward to a good year for the police department. No defunding here. We want to continue on, and we want to, attract some people. We're down, I don't know how many offers, 6, I think at one time 10. I know we've hired 1, and we may have another one in the works, but we need to hire people that want to live in Ruidoso, where it's beautiful, where they love to hike, they love the outdoors, and so that's going to be one of our hiring ploys in marketing is how do we get people that want to live a active lifestyle in the mountains to move here. Next slide, please. Fire department, Chief Thetford does a great job. We have the best fire department, I think, in the state of New Mexico. We had a fire just this last Sunday morning at the crack of dawn. I mean, it was early, and it was out before anybody knew it. It was in Upper Canyon. So our trucks were over there. We spend a lot of money on trucks that can maneuver these tight roads and these steep hills. And so we're happy that we have them. We don't like to use them, but we do. This picture here, it has a little sentence down there that says ISO rating of 2. Now, people don't know what that means, but ISO rating of 2 is a big deal. We worked hard to get that. Chief Thetford is proud of that rating. What that means is that we have the equipment, the training, the people, the personnel, the fire hydrants, the water supply, to be able to handle fires and to work in certain areas of the community. And it'll work along with another department I'll be talking about shortly, forestry. But the ISO rating is very important, and it's important to you because you know that you have the security that there's water in those fire hydrants, that if there's not a fire hydrant close enough to you, that there is a water tank storage somewhere around, that we have the equipment to get there. And so it also translates into better insurance premiums. The highest that you can get to 1, and I mean, I don't see how we're going to get another one because of just our overall rating as a community. You know, we're usually rated 1 or 2 in the nation as far as the possibility of having a catastrophic fire event. And so this is one of the things that we do. We work hard on to make sure that we have the best of the best. And this picture here is the guy sporting their new body armor vest that came from a grant from the Hubbard Foundation. And the gentleman in blue is Robert Donaldson with his mask on. And so he was delivering that check that day, and that's where this picture came from. Next slide, please. Emergency management. We have our own emergency manager, Joe Kasabowski, known affectionately as Joe K. We worked with him in the beginning, and he stayed in touch with Joe Kenmore in the county, other health officials at DOH on recommendations for COVID-19 response. We implemented a couple of new sirens that you hear at 5 o'clock on the 1st and the 15th to alert people of emergencies. So he's done a good job of those things. But his big thing is that he's building resilient infrastructure and communications grants. That's the BRIC grants that he works hard on that supports state and local communities, tribes, territories. It's always about the grants, but to be able to get it, you have to have all the work done, the committees put in, the ordinances along with it. You have to have your seed money. All of those things, and so he's working to make sure that we're in on that. He's working on the emergency redundant systems, that we get those installed, and we learned a lesson from that during the Little Bear fire when we lost the cell phone towers. A lot of our phones didn't work, and we had to go back to the two-way radios. The radio station will play a big part into the emergency management system. Also, we'll move to the next one, the airport. Joe Kasabowski has a big part out at the airport along with Chief Thetford. We're in the process of those guys managing that right now. They just completed and passed the FAA Part 139 inspection certification, and that's important. That opens us up for all the grants and the other things. They just finished another striping project if you haven't been to the airport, you need to, like I said, take a look at what's going on there. We have a super nice airport. A lot of people that fly in out here don't realize until they get here how nice of an airport it is. But to a lot of people that come into this community, this is the front door. And so we want to work with that. And I'm in the process of working with several of our aviators, our locals that have airplanes that fly out there. We want to put together a group on what they would like to see at that airport, what amenities, so that we can have the fly-in drive-ins or the fly-in stay-ins and things like that. Okay, next slide, please. Forestry. Okay, the Village of Ruidoso is one of the only communities in the state that has its own forestry department. And this rank goes into with the ISO rating that we talked about with the thinning processes. I know that all of you in the village have had to thin your properties, and it's called defensible space. And this is when we do have a fire that we're able to knock it down. It doesn't get into the crown of the trees, that we're able to clean up and get the pine needles out of there so that we don't have those catastrophic fires. But as I mentioned before, we're usually ranked 1 or number 2 in the possibility of a catastrophic fire. So these are things that we're doing to relieve that and not stop that from happening. But the forestry department has thinned 117 acres. They have 815 compliant private properties. Those are you, the citizens, that have got your properties into compliance. They've taken down 185 hazardous trees. This was really one of those deals. It comes up there with that jumping Mexican mouse and the spotted owl. They had to survey 500 acres at the airport for the Kunzinger's hedgehog cactus, and his guys got out there and traversed all over that. So we appreciate all that they do. And again, that's a very important department that gets you that ISO 2 rating. And when your head hits that pillow at night, you're pretty safe to say that, fire's not going to get you. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, we're getting towards the end, and I know I can tell by the grudges on your faces that you're ready. But the New Mexico 2020 legislative priorities for the village, we put in 5 requests initially. We've added a couple more. They called us and asked us for some more. But one is to help us with the bridge replacement projects. That's $750,000. Workforce housing, another $750,000. It's a drop in the bucket. E911 Consolidated Dispatch, another $750. Horton Complex, another $750 to help complete that project. Forest and watershed improvements, as always, $150,000. So we're working on those with our legislative priorities. That's where hopefully our Representative Zach Cook will bring that, be able to get some of our tax dollars returned to us. Next slide, please. This is a portion where we're going to get into question and answers. So with all the questions that you sent in, and there's a lot of them, and yeah, there were some ugly ones in there that I don't even know what to say to you. But here it says, how do we maintain Grindstone Lake without it being overran by tourists? And I hope that I touched on some of those, that we have the limited parking, that we're going to parking, that you have to make a reservation for parking. We will have local days so that people that have a local address will be able to get in here. And that'll go for property owners too. About 50% of our homes or second homes are owned by people that don't live here full time, but they pay their water rates, they pay their sewer bills and things like that. So they'll be able to take care of that. We're going to have better management of it this year. We learned a lesson at the beginning of this in the summer. So we will have better management out there, more eyes on it, more trash control, things like that. And hopefully soon we will have other activities for them to do in the summer. So we'll be stretching out people in the community, whether it's over on Ski Run Road for summer tubing, it's over at Moon Mountain for hiking and additional disc golfing, or hiking in other areas. Next slide, please. Okay, back up one. What's your plan for increasing long-term rental and affordable housing? We've been working some time on affordable housing. We have the Affordable Housing Act. We have put in place what's called a land bank, and these are all the things that you need to be able to get tax credit programs in here. We're doing everything we can to attract private investors, and we are starting to get phone calls from those people. And as I mentioned early on in the program, we have through the CDBG grant program up behind Town and Country that soon there will be 60 homes constructed up there. We hope he wants his first home by this summer. And so that's the first step, and we have many more of those done. We have money that we've saved so that we can help seed one of these. We've tried. We've had several programs that we've looked at, that we've asked you, the public, for your opinion on. And initially, we received favorable replies. And then we had some misinformation that got out, and both those programs were scrapped under the title of Not in My Backyard. And so we need to find a place. So you out there in the public can help us. If you find property that you think would be appropriate, and by that I mean, is it in your neighborhood? Because we've had every realtor in town that have sent me listings, but we run up against the same thing. So we are having to do that. We're also working with the city of Ruidoso Downs. I know that they're looking at some workforce housing, affordable housing. I know right now everything else is in the county. But we have our eyes open and our ears open, and we're willing to look at anything that we can to develop it. Again, we're victim of our own success when it comes to the short-term rentals. It does take the long-term rentals out of the market, and we understand firsthand because we have employees here that are still living in RVs. People that drive in from Tularosa, the people that drive in from Alamogordo. So we understand that. I'm an employer here in town, and I know how hard it is to get employees. And so these things go hand in hand. To be able to get the employees, there has to be affordable housing. We are working on that. We have a wonderful committee of people that have been beat up severely over some of the things that they've suggested. I would ask you to be more patient and have solutions. It's easy to point out a problem, and we always have fingers pointing at us. But if you have a solution, we're willing to hear it. We want to look at it. Now, do we want to go into any other questions? Okay, you opened up the chat box. I don't have it. Where's it at? Okay, the chat box is open. So on Zoom, if you've got a question, ask it nicely, and we will do our best to answer it. We have several of our councilmen up here, councilwoman. And in the other office over here, we have several of our directors from the water department, the library, their streets department, Parks and Rec that are able to answer your question. So the beautiful faces that you see looking at you are from your left is Gary Jackson, Dr. Gary Jackson. Next is Tim Coughlin. Next is John Cornelius, myself, and then Mayor Pro Tem Rifle Salas, Susan Lutterman, and Joe Eby are people that are serving on your council. These people give unwaveringly. I mean, they show up to meetings. They read all the data. It's not once a month. There's a meeting at least every day that can go on, and I know these folks meet at several of them. Each one of them have some sort of expertise. Some of them didn't know they had it until we found it, and then we abuse it. Just for example, Dr. Gary Jackson has been very instrumental in working with us on our COVID response, trying to dig through some of this data that doesn't make sense and is confusing and sometimes just outright is wrong. Tim Coughlin over here is a master of the detail. He works with the children here at the Boys and Girls Club and also in Roswell. So he has his fingers on the pulse of so many youth in the community, and we understand the needs and the things that we need to address. And so we're working on that. John Cornelius is a local builder that we call on him all the time for different projects to get his expertise. Rifle Salas is retired from Parks and Rec, has been here for years, understands the water system like no other, and has many friends in the community. Susan Lutterman, she's the one that gets the phone calls like I used to get and saying, what are y'all doing? How come you're not doing this? And so she calls me all the time. She has such a sweet spirit and a giving nature. She's a retired banker and a big asset. And of course, Joe Eby, everybody knows Joe. And we're still praying for his dear wife, Ann, to get better. Joe has been a pillar of the community for many, many years. He's a giving individual. You'll find none better. And he is an expert in so many different fields that I'm not going to point out just one. But you have a tremendous council that is serving you tirelessly, and they deserve your appreciation and a pat on the back once in a while. What's the question? No, there's no charge for the tents to the restaurants. We were able to, when I talked about earlier, that we were keeping track of all the CARES Act expenses that we did. Believe it or not, when it came up, this was a reimbursable expense, and so the village was reimbursed for the tents that we purchased, but we do not charge. And if we have a tent, anybody in the restaurant business that we can help, we provided it. 257?
5030. Report made to the.
Okay, that's Rodney Griego, our Parks and Rec Director. Evidently, you still have some tents.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because I know that I got a call the other day from a restaurateur that you were able to put up a couple. So if you want a tent, you don't have to call me. Call 257-5030, and Rodney and his folks will get on that to help you get a tent. Next. Well, and we work closely with the hospital, but, you know, really it's up to the hospital. They're surveying the needs of the community. I know we've had a cardiologist, fusion therapy, things like that have come to town. But one of the things that the village is doing is having a vibrant, community, something that's beautiful, that people want to live in, that has the quality of life. And so that's what we're trying to attract. So we're doing what we can do in a position of support, information, whatever we can give to the hospital, Lincoln County Medical Center. So that's basically all that I know that we're able to do. And we do, talk to those guys pretty regular.
Mayor, we had another question that came in, or a group of questions. What are we going to do to help reopen the communities and work to get open?
Well, one of the things that we're doing, and I totally passed over the CARES Act money, but I mentioned it briefly, but one of the things that we did to help businesses stay open was the village staff was able to get almost $2 million in CARES Act money that we were able to distribute it to 77 businesses. And most of those grants were $20,000, or less, just a little less dollars. So that's one of the things that we help businesses stay open, and some of them were able to do some remodels and additions. Some of the things that we're working on is, we don't agree with what's going on. I'll just say that personally. We think businesses need to be open. We've had many comments. I serve on the Governor's Council of Mayors of 9, and you ask, how did you get on that? I lobbied for it. We asked for it. We wrote letters. We called legislators. I wanted a seat at the table to have a voice that it doesn't get listened to, quite frankly. But we're building alliances with a lot of mayors from around the state that are exhibiting the same ideals that we've been espousing for some time, that we know how to operate our community better than someone in Santa Fe, so let us operate it. We haven't been able to do that. One of the things that we have not done is we're not ticketing businesses. We're not out harassing businesses to stay open. We're educating. We've made sure that we've had plenty of PPE, and that the businesses, if they don't have it, that they have access to it, how to operate safely, and please do that. But those are some of the things that we're doing. We're also working within the framework of what the governor and her people have set up on the green, yellow, and red. So we have started actively in leadership roles, working hand in hand with the county and now with the other neighboring communities on getting people tested, because the only way that we're going to get to that 5% contact ratio is if we test a lot of people that aren't sick. Because previously all we were testing were people that were not feeling good, sick, or they'd been called by contact tracing to that they said they needed to get tested. So the likelihood of having a positive was greater. So we're getting a lot of people that are tested, and with all the positives we're having now, you can only imagine the numbers and the percentages that we would be in if we weren't testing everybody that we can get to go test negative. So we've had it in Carrizozo. Mayor Dean over there has set up that, and we're doing several of those a week. We have them in Corona, Capitan. We have it in the Downs, and of course here in Ruidoso at the Department of Health, that we're testing as many people as we can to get that number to come down. And again, we're just trying to educate people so that we can get that contact number down. I mean, it's going to be difficult to get to green, but we're pushing to get the businesses open. If we can get to 25, 50%, we're lobbying. We have sent, we did a joint resolution to try to get the casino open at the racetrack, because that's been identified as an industry cluster that so many other businesses really depend on the revenue that comes from that. So we've written letters to the governor, to the Economic Development Council. We know those people personally, that they are people that are, we're giving the input to, we're giving them the data so that they can pass along to the governor. We've made some inroads. We're working hard on businesses, and we know who they are, that haven't been able to open, that are suffering greatly. Some may not be able to reopen. We're advocating on those businesses pretty much every day with the chief of staff. I mean, Matt Garcia, we talk to him daily. Victor Reyes, our senior staff advisors. We're talking to those people all the time, but not only our people, but we've reached out to many representatives across the state to speak on their behalf, Democrats alike, because it's not just a Republican problem. This is a Democrat New Mexican problem that we've asked the governor. We've sent letters that if we're the most restrictive state or one of them in the nation, then why isn't our contact ratio better? Why isn't our death ratios better? Why aren't these things improving? And if they're not improving, let's have enough humility that we admit that we're moving in the wrong direction, have enough integrity to move in another direction and open our businesses. And so those are the things that we're asking in the private sector sections. But if you're expecting me to go on KOB, KRQE, where they get the story wrong every time anyway, and shout at the devil and shake my fist at her, I've seen what happens to people that do that. Their businesses get fined, they get shut down. It's a lot harder road to hoe. We're having successes, and I hope that tonight, after you saw this presentation, that you think that we've been moving in a right direction, that our GRT speaks for that. Yes, we have people that are hurting in the community, and we feel for those people. We want to help those people. We are doing everything that we can to hurt their people. to help those people. You know, restaurants, we want them open. I'd love to leave here and go to the little watering hole down the street and have a cocktail. I would love to do that. But we're not able to do that right now. But we're advocating on their behalf that they will be able to open. But one thing about it is I'm not in charge of their liquor license. So if that liquor license is taken, there's nothing I can do about that. I can't keep their distributors delivering to them. I'm not in charge of your health license, okay? But again, as I said earlier, there's not been anybody out there ticketed by the village, anybody that's been threatened by the village. You don't have a letter from me. So we would hope that you understand that we're supporting you every way we can. We ask you to operate safely because we do know people that have lost their lives. We know families that are suffering the ultimate sacrifice. Yeah, most of us, it doesn't bother us, but that one or two, it's not worth it. Next question.
Mayor, we have a conversation going on that there's been several, false negatives that have came through. They're suggesting that we'd be better off not testing at all. There's that type of a conversation going on.
Well, if we have a false negative, it plays right into the hand of getting yellow and green.
I'm sorry, Mayor, sorry to interrupt, but false positive.
Oh, false positives.
Yes.
Okay, and I know the issue about the curative site, but one of the things that we've done is, and like I said, I'm not an expert on these things. We do make inquiries after it was found out in California that they were doing an investigation into the curative company on these different false positives, but I was under the understanding it was more false negatives. But, again, I think the overwhelming science supports the fact that we should test. It's better to know that you're positive so that you can protect your loved ones. If it's a false positive, take another test. I mean, we take them here weekly, so I don't really know that I have a good answer for that. Do you have a good answer?
Mayor, if I may?
Yes, sir.
On that, what I would recommend, and there were several people that actually sent in comments on the 92 responses that responded to the Survey Monkey.
Mm-hmm.
There were several people that said, what can I do? What can I do to help? And, one thing that we are doing is we're meeting countywide with county leadership. And if people have a different approach, let's sit down and have a conversation.
Well, and that's exactly right. And maybe I didn't get that message across very well, but, I didn't get any smarter when I got elected mayor, and I know y'all point that out to me pretty regular, but I did get access to better information. And so what it is if we have moved in a direction that it's not paying off, it's not giving us the dividends, the rewards that we were looking for, and you have a better plan of action that we can look at and study and move in that direction, I'm all ears.
So, those individuals that did comment, if they'll reach out to us and, we can sit down and have that conversation and reconsider our strategy. I know that we are having a meeting on Friday with all the partners from Lincoln County to discuss increased testing or alternative testing or different methods.
Yeah, I know it's been suggested we go to the 15-minute, I forgot what that test is called. They all have different names, but the one that's almost immediate.
The rapid.
But again, if you're out there and you have a better solution, like I said earlier in the program, there's a lot of problems, there's no doubt. But if you have a solution, believe me, we're willing to look at it. It'll be cut and weighed and measured. And if need be, then and it's what we find that we need to do, we'll move in that direction.
Mayor, one of the other questions that came in is, what's the village going to do for economic revitalization once COVID's over with? And, what's the strategy that we're going to be, employing? One
of the things that we've already, it's ready to go, and that's our team tourism, as I mentioned before. And some of these questions you're answering, I kind of touched on some of the answers in the plan, but on the revitalization, we already have plans. We're already communicating with event organizers to bring stuff back into the community. Team tourism has, the stuff already ready to run in our different markets, from Arizona, Texas, Oklahoma, Arizona, I already said Arizona, but anyway, they have ad programs that are ready to go. We have different things on the man on the streets, different types of marketing that we're looking at, and that's where we're talking about working with partners in the community on the HOVs, the off-road side-by-sides, the Frisbee golf, going after statewide tournaments, more RV camping, things of that nature, but getting back to having an event every weekend. We have RMA, the Ruidoso Midtown Association, has plans in the works, but it all comes back to when are we going to be able to get mass meetings where we can have more than 10 people show up at a concert. And so we have a lot of things like that when it's safe. And what is safe? Again, if you have the underlying conditions, we ask you to please stay home. But we have got to get back to business. We're working on the Metropolitan Redevelopment Act, which I mentioned, and I guess I didn't show enough enthusiasm over it, but I'm pretty excited.
Mayor, if I may, I think it's more on the analytical part that we're going to be approaching.
Okay.
So,
you mean through the data that we're going to be receiving? Okay, thank you for keeping me straight here. But we have, purchased an analytical software that I mentioned earlier that is able to take data off of cell phones, off of credit cards or whatever, and we're able to target certain markets and find out what people will come, what they buy when they come, and be able to market to those people. But that's analytical data, and we're going to be working with giving this free of charge to businesses. Now then, you can go through the Village of Ruidoso. I think we're going to have it with the Chamber of Commerce. So if you're a member of the Chamber, that you will have access to this. So we're working on all kinds of different models to get you pertinent information in your hand that will help you develop or increase your business is one of the things that we're working on. But it's a powerful tool that we've purchased, and we have the information at our fingertips. We're just waiting to be able to employ it.
Mayor, and I know that there's people on both sides of this issue, but there were several questions that came in about wildlife. What are we going to do about the wildlife?
And contrary to Facebook, which, I don't read that stuff, so, y'all can continue to write it for one another, but the animals, the horses, we love the wildlife here in Ruidoso, so that's one of the reasons we live here. Our tagline is living in nature's playground. We have a group called Living in the WUI, the Wildland Urban Interface. How do we live with nature? And so one of the things is that we have so much wildlife that, wasn't here that many years ago. First, it was just a few deer, and then it was a lot of deer. Then it was a few elk, and that's a lot of elk. And, there's theories as to why, but, I'm sure the Little Bear Fire had something to do with it, and the green grass and the golf courses and people feeding them. That has something to do with it, and the horses. So we want to keep the wildlife here. And yes, we all know that they're a big tourist attraction, but we have to find a workable solution. So we have written a letter to the governor and also to the government agencies that are listed as being in control of the horses, because they seem to be the issue at hand. Because of the mess about just some of the pure destruction that they do to private property and to public property. And as stewards of your public property, we need to have a plan. So we've asked the Livestock Board for options. What can we do? Is it have to do with darting for birth control methods? Does it have to do with moving them to different parts of the county? What are the options that are out there? But the ultimate goal is we want to make it safe for people, and we want to make it safe for the animals. And so, yes, we're working on, Chief Hooker has his guys working Hull Road and those surrounding areas that we have noted, and we've taken traffic surveys of how people speed. So we're trying to educate our own people on, drive with your eyes wide open. Don't be texting and driving. Watch what you're doing, because a deer, an elk, or a horse is going to be in your way. And yes, we had a big celebration the other day. I think it was 2 days ago that little horse was born out there, and everybody drives up and can see him. And we love that. And so we're working on a happy medium with that. And I know when you do that and you straddle the fence, you don't make anybody happy. So I don't have a conclusive answer. We're gathering information at this time, but the ultimate goal is we want people and animals safe. And so we'll get there with your help. But the main thing is, if you haven't seen the little signs, you're going to see some bigger ones. It says, we have an ordinance against feeding the horses. And so when you pull up out there at the soccer fields and you've got your windows down and the horse's head is in your lap eating apples and carrots, you're probably going to get a ticket, and it's not going to be a cheapie. So I ask you, please observe nature from afar. Use your camera, ooh and ah, but we do not want to harm the animals, and we don't want anybody to get harmed by the animals. And I'll give you one example. It's been a week or two that people were out there feeding the animals, and a couple of guys in a Can-Am ATV, orange with gold and black trim, went swooping down in there and spooked the horses, and the horses took off running. And, just thank goodness there weren't those little kids down there that had just been there earlier in the day feeding the horses. If those horses would have bolted the other direction, we would be having a much different conversation. So we are going to do something about the horses, because I don't want to be that mayor that gets the call and said, why didn't you do something? We're going to work on it for the best of everybody involved.
Mayor, we have several people thanking you for this informative presentation tonight, thanking you for your efforts and all you do for the community. We have an individual on here that also thinks that there needs to be something done with the stallions to control the population, that they don't want to end up like the Four Corners area.
Exactly.
There's a question here about the software analytical. When is it going to be expected to be available to the community and whatnot?
Well, I mean, we have it now. And so we need to put together, if you have a specific question or needs or whatever, just contact us at Village Hall and we'll be happy to sit down. I know this week is going to be tough because we have our strategic planning this week. But next week, if we could sit down with you and, I think that what we need to do is do a reach out, and have Zoom meetings with business people to tell them what it's about, what it can do. And just let people know what it's all about, and then we can meet with people one-on-one at that point afterwards.
Yes, and we will be having more discussion on that during the workshop meeting?
Yes, on our workshop meeting, we start tomorrow. We have a council meeting in the morning at 8 o'clock. It won't last long, and then we'll go right into 9 o'clock strategic meeting that'll last till 4 or 5, and that'll be Tuesday and Wednesday. But let me just back up on the horses. We're looking at information from the Sandoval County area, Four Corners, from Arizona, Nevada. And so there's data out there on what we can do. And so we've talked to some folks, the different groups that are out there. I'm not going to name any of them specifically, about darting procedures where you can sterilize an animal for a year at a time. And so those are things that we're working on, but nobody's talking about rounding them up. We're not going to be sending them to Mexico to the slaughterhouse or anything like that. We're not about that at all. We love this land just like you do.
Mayor, there's a question that came in. I don't see it right now, but it was talking about the vaccines. Do we have any information on vaccines, the number of people that have been vaccinated?
Yes, we do. And as I mentioned before, I was working with Dr. Rath, and that's an interesting story, and I hope people are able to pull that story out of the Washington compost, as some people call it. Maybe it's a good article. I imagine it will be, but a local person wrote it, 2 doctors and a book club on how they rolled it out. But I know that at Fusion Medical Spa, there's approximately 2,400 people that have been vaccinated. I know the hospital has done, I think, close to 1,000. Right now, a lot of the second rounds from either the Pfizer or Moderna, that's the 2 shots that have been available here in Ruidoso and Lincoln County. So we do have a lot of folks that are becoming vaccinated, and then are now in the process of getting their booster. And so once again, I know the process is tedious. We do have a local number here that is available, that if you don't have internet, you're not watching this. But if you know somebody that doesn't have internet or a smartphone, tell them to call, the Village Hall, and we will help them get registered. So we have quite a few moving. I know that the state of New Mexico, the last information I saw was ranked 3rd in the nation as far as vaccinations. on the rollout. And so Lincoln County is in a high portion of that. And due to the volunteerism of this community, which is Dr. Stephen Rath and his wife and those wonderful volunteers. Any other questions?
Mayor, there's a question. The analytical software, who do they contact directly? On that one, if they do call the Community Development Department there at Village Hall, ask for Samantha.
Yeah, as for Samantha Mendez, she will take your information and we will get together with you and show you what this thing has available. But it is pretty remarkable if you can get over the fact that it's scary, because they know a lot about us and they already, what they want to know, they know. But it's time that you know what can help you, the information, the data that's out there that we can gather in to give to you so that you'll be able to operate your business more efficiently and, be laser focused on what will get you back on top.
Mayor, we have a question. What restriction expectations are there for the summer?
Well, according to the governor, in the conversations that we've had with her, she's expecting to hold out basically all summer, and that she knows that that's not going to happen. We're working with a lot of different mayors. We're working with the New Mexico Municipal League because we have got to get this track casino and the casino statewide open, or we will not have a racing industry in Ruidoso, or in the state of New Mexico, period. And so we will lose that. The owners of that have lost plenty of money, and they're only going to do that for so long. So the governor has mentioned that, along with the new president, it's going to be a long, cold winter. What we've seen is what we've done. It hasn't worked. And so what we're saying is that we need other plans. And so we have been talking to the governor's people, again, the Economic Development Council that we know intimately, that we give information to. So we're hoping that we can get the casino open in February, and then slowly roll out. And that's why it's important for people at this point with our ideology and the theory behind our testing is that we test enough negative people that we can get to yellow and then to green. And so we can't go into the summer. We need to get our businesses open as soon as possible.
Mayor, is there an anticipated time when library will be open to in-house customers?
That's something that we're going to have to work out with staff, with Diane, and we will get it open as soon as possible. Of course, it'll be with limited. I know they won't be able to do all the children's activities and all the wonderful things that they do because of having too many people in there. But, that's one of the things that we've just got on the drawing board, and we'll go through that on this strategic plan that we'll be working on this week. So we should have an answer coming out in the next week or two on some more plans on openings, what we should do. And again, we're not trying to be reckless. We're not going to be reckless with any of this. We expect, just like in Village Hall, we wear masks. We have sanitizer everywhere. I know people that hadn't been out of their house in 4 months, and now then they're COVID positive, and they have no idea where they got it or how they got it. So take your vitamins, get plenty of sleep. It's not a big scary boogeyman to the majority of us, but we still need to be careful.
Mayor, will these slides from the presentation be on the website?
Yes, they are. They're if they're not already on there, they will be on there, and you're welcome to them. And like I said, if you have any clarity questions that you need, if I can't answer them, well, guess what? I do know somebody that knows. Tim over here knows, or Judy Starkovich knows.
Mayor, there's a question. Since we're not issuing fines, can restaurants open?
Well, again, you're going to travel at your own risk, and you're asking me to be pulled down the rabbit hole. I don't control your liquor licenses. I don't control your food service handlers permits. It's going to be proceed at your own risk. It's not, we're not going to pay your fines. I've had people say, why aren't you paying people's fines? Well, number one, I haven't seen anybody pay any fines. I've heard about people that said that they'd been threatened to do. Well, I know that I've seen some letters that say if you proceed, if you do not cease and desist, that you will be fined and you could be possibly taken to jail. So this would be at your own risk. I have no authority. If I had the authority, I would have used it. The state of New Mexico Supreme Court has made it very clear who has the authority. We worked with our own state representative, Attorney Zach Cook. He was on that defense team with the Restaurant Association. And I don't even think they were in there 30 minutes before they were summarily overjudged, and they sided with the governor. And so until something changes, I know we're working on legislation with our representatives to make it where there's more eyes and minds tied to things like this pandemic. And so I guess this was a lesson we should have learned in 1912, but people weren't thinking about that then. So, proceed at your own risk. I'm not going to go in there because I don't have the authority to protect you. If I could, I would, but I don't.
All right, Mayor, and with that seems to cover all the questions, unless I've missed some. But there's a tremendous amount of thanks and appreciation for your efforts in the presentation tonight, Mayor.
Well, thank you, and I want to appreciate the staff that put all this information together. We've worked on it for quite a while, but we do this stuff every day, and so I hope that people tune in to the radio station 1490 and listen to the information. And as always, please call. I return phone calls. I try to return every email. Although when they get super long, folks, I cannot address everything at once, so I don't mind a bunch of short little ones that I can address them to in a timely manner. And last of all, I want to thank my wife who puts up with this because as mayor, as a city councilman for years and then a mayor pro tem, it was a little different. Now during the pandemic, it's a full-time job. We start early in the morning and she puts up with it. She listens to the phone calls, the pausing on the streaming of videos. In fact, she'll just get up and go to another room or gives me the space to operate. So she's to be commended, and as are all the spouses, because this council, people don't realize the work that they put into it. But I just want to thank my wife, for putting up with it, and I know there's times that she's questioned my sanity for doing this, but it's been a real pleasure serving this community. We do give it our all. We are passionate about what we do, and I know not everybody agrees with what we're doing. And again, if you have a solution, we want to hear it. And we do try to talk to all the people that have the information. But I will let you know, the people that I listen to the most work down here at the Lincoln County Medical Center. That they tell me our capabilities. Are we able to take care of these people, or when we're not, when it's getting tough? Those are the people that I listen to, because they take care of you, the people in this community that I see. And if you would just do one thing, when we opened the meeting, Mayor Pro Tem talked about taking a moment of silence and thinking about those that we've lost. There's a lot of them. You may not think that, but if you sit down and start counting people that we've lost in just the last few months, it's getting up there. So, remember your family, your neighbors, your friends, be kind to one another. And if we can get through this, we don't have to agree on everything, and we don't. This council does not agree on everything. They'll be mad at me for some of the things I've said today, I'm sure, tonight. I'll hear about it, but that's the way I believe, and that's what I think. And so we appreciate you entrusting us with the GO bond votes, with the money, the things that we've done. We hope that you like the results that you're seeing, but I want you to go to bed tonight thinking about how secure you are in your finances for this village and for the water, that you are safe, that we have a great police department and a great fire department, and they've proven it over and over. And so you live in a good community that's going to be on the verge of just being something spectacular. We've got so many plans for the future, and we love it when we have people that volunteer to come in and get involved. So we hope that you will, and we're looking forward to serving you and seeing you soon. And Lord be with us so that we can actually get open and not have to worry about any of this nonsense. So anyway, is there anything else that anybody has? Okay. All right. Well, that's it from the convention center. So thank you for attending, and we will have more meetings coming soon. Thank you.